So good morning and welcome to the STEM Talk series, an alternative platform for providing career information and skills development. And the idea of doing this is actually for us to connect science, technology, engineering, and math education to a variety of different sectors and industry. And this program, this series is powered by S.T.E.M resources. And my name is Jadisola Adideji, and I am the CEO of S.T.E.M. We're based in Lagos, Nigeria. And through our STEM-based activities, we are bridging the skills gap in the education sector, and we're preparing our students for the future workplace. And so today, our guest is Ada Irikefe, and she's the director, and she's an associate director, and heads the Disruption Practices PwC Experience Center in Lagos. Ada has over 18 years experience as a business IT professional across multiple verticals. She works with clients across industries and sectors to transform their vision into future-proof, fit-for-purpose, and sustainable solutions in line with mega trends and emerging technologies. So Ada, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Jade. Good morning. Good morning,
Actually, PwC is the first multinational that we're featuring. Our previous guests have all been Nigerian-focused guests and companies because we wanted to showcase things going on. So you're welcome here to join us as a multinational. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thanks, Jade. Thanks for having me.
So let's get started. So PwC, so we're focusing today on professional services. And PwC, is known, I think, to many people. We think of accounting, we think of advisory, we think of auditing, etc. And so that's the image we have of PwC. So maybe you should first please give us a review of PwC's history in the professional services sector.
Okay, all right, thanks, Jade. Thank you. So let me provide some history, background, and permit me, it may sound very history-like, but you would understand why. So PwC of today was formed from a merger between Pricewaterhouse and Coopers & Lybrand. Both firms were traditionally accounting firms and originated as far back as the mid-1800s, okay? So in Nigeria, the firm has a history that dates back to 1953. And this means that we have been in business for about 67 years, all right? So the firm's structure and range of service has evolved to what it is today. Like you mentioned, we're known for audit and assurance, tax, consulting, and advisory services. Now, as we all know, we've gone through a couple of changes in the last, God knows how many years, decades. And the truth be told is that our clients are asking for more demonstrable value. They want creativity, they want agility, and of course, they want to keep it at an acceptable cost. Employees are also not left out. We want growth, we want better engagement, and we want acknowledgement that we're making an appreciable difference. So to respond to these changes, PwC has added other bouquet of services with a strategic focus around technology. Okay, so we've moved from being accounting, known as an accounting firm, providing audit and assurance services. Now we're morphing into a technology-enabled provider. For us, this is like well captured in our 5 values, which is reimagine the possible. So you can imagine moving from, from one strata to another. So we have disrupted ourselves to remain relevant and proactive in this industry. Now, the reason why I took you down the memory lane was just to highlight that no business can afford to rely on past glory. Now, if we don't reinvent ourselves, we'll go down the route of the Nokias of this world, the Kodaks, the Blackberries. Now, if you remember Blockbusters, you know, that's my personal favorite. And so what I'm trying to say here is that a mindset shift has to do a lot with the evolution and where we are today. So I hope that kind of paints the picture.
That's interesting. I love what you said about you have to disrupt yourselves to remain relevant. And I think last week we also, you know, we touched on being conscious of the themes of time, of our time, basically. Because I mean, you can easily say, well, you know, we're consulting, we're all,
giants.
Let's just carry on with that, and ignoring the influence and impact of technology actually across all sectors. And part of the reason we're doing this is also to try and highlight how technology influences, you know, we're not all going to be coders or programmers, but we have to realize, in fact, it's almost inevitable for us to accept that technology is a huge influencer in this 21st century. And us as individuals and companies have to evolve accordingly. Otherwise, we won't be able, as you said, to cater to your clients' needs. You know, so sometimes it's either you're pushed into it or you're pulled into it, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've seen in the last few months. But if you think disruption, you know, normally people would say, oh, what's disruption? And even my mom would say, you know, I mean, why do you have such a header, disruption? My mom understands disruption now. Everybody understands. After the lockdown, everybody understands what disruption is all about. So somehow it's organizations that have prepared themselves that way they were to a degree able to thrive during the lockdown phase. So for us, you know, I always like to emphasize that technology is not a solution, it's an enabler. So we always have to be careful to make that distinction.
So it's an enabler. To the extent that we realize that and even allow it to enable whatever it is that we're doing, in a sense.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic, I like
it. Really shouldn't matter what kind of organization you run, you know, small business, large, you need an element of technology, you know, to be able to survive and thrive.
So I mentioned in the description that, so we've touched on the disruption practice at the PwC Experience Center. So many of us may not know that I've had the privilege of visit. Talk us through the idea of the Experience Center, please.
Okay, so I remember I mentioned, talked about strategic focus around technology and how business, to remain successful, you need to disrupt yourself, which is what our CSP mentioned. So for us, the Experience Center was more responding to what we call disruption. And we felt that, you know, by creating a separate space, I call it a separate space, it's still under the same PwC umbrella, where we're mindful not to take ourselves out of relevance. You know, we're mindful of the disruptions that are being caused, especially around regulatory and mega trends. I believe we mentioned that. So for us, we're kind of exploring, you know, what are those sort of risks and opportunities that are out there. You mentioned that we could have easily stayed as a consulting firm or just audit and assurance, you know, but the truth of the matter is that we have more players coming into the industry. I mean, everybody refers to the big four, but then you also have another, you know, let me call them another medium 10 that could become the big four, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
For us, we wanted to ensure that we're not immune to this disruptions, and we wanted to imbibe the ability to respond and adapt accordingly. So we've changed our business model, and a business model now incorporates an innovative and disruptive mindset. And that's what started off the whole Experience Center. Like you mentioned, we launched the center June 2019. So it's probably how many? Just about a year.
Yeah.
It's the first of its kind in Africa. We're one of 33 that exist globally to date. And yeah, so one of 33. I'm just checking if we've moved beyond that. So for us, we consider the Experience Center, the EC, like we like to call it, the most collaborative space we have. It's home to emerging technologies from virtual reality, AI, robotics, blockchain. It's also home to a number of specialists. And I guess this is part of our discussions today. We have business strategies, we have technology strategies, we have disruptive innovation specialists who all work together. The center is really a space where clients and employees can come to co-create, build and test out new solutions and initiatives without fear of failure. So really that's more, I guess traditionally what we do as, should I say, as consultant is to get our clients' requests, go back to them with maybe a 200-page document, and the clients probably would just read maybe the first 10 and the last 10, you know, maybe, and the last 10. But right now we're sort of reinventing that. We're creating prototypes. So the prototypes, you know, gives our clients an idea of what the solution would look like at the end. You don't have to wait till the tail end. You know, you can make changes midway. So the great emphasis is really on co-creation. And I guess EC is all about.
So the idea is to have a space that kind of reflects, I suppose, the nature of what your group is trying to do.
Absolutely.
You know, so the space for co-creation and also the space for even the, you know, consultants and employees to work in a nice space, because that actually, you know, contributes to creativity, I guess, in one way or another.
100%, Daddy.
Yeah.
Especially the type of employees we have now. Millennials and Gen Zs.
Right.
You know, I say, you know, like the median age at the Experience Center is 23.
Wow.
Yes, this is the median age. And they're highly intelligent, extremely intelligent, very creative. But guess what? Very restless. Very restless. So you always, what we've done is found ways that they can work, ways that they can work productively. The millennials will tell you they don't need to do 10 hours. And we don't need to do 10 hours. They can give you a good chunk of work in 4 hours, 5 hours. So if you're one of those where you clock watch, you know, you're looking at your employees to see, okay, you came in at 8 o'clock and you're leaving at 5 o'clock, then you lose completely. You lose completely. So in the Experience Center, we have nap pods.
Wow.
Yes.
I want to work there. Can
I apply? You have to fall into that bracket.
I'm too old. I'm not in the median age. So you have nap pods.
We have nap pods. We have playstations. We have like a little calf, a kitchenette. So the idea is to lock you in there, really. Right. And once you're in there, you know, you don't worry about what is happening outside. And truth be told, you know, we have spent hours. Most times we look up and we're like, oh my goodness, it's 8 o'clock, but everybody's having so much fun. You know, if you want to rest, go and rest. But I'm mindful with the rest bit, though. I say, I'm mindful because we've had people say, oh, can I spend the night here? No way. You know, you can imagine now maybe with the traffic, you know, with the lockdown on the bridge. I said, no way, it's you know, because then you turn it into something else.
Right.
So it's just use it for power naps. And
so in the midst of trying to, again, respond to the theme of your time, you responded also to the types of employees or the current generation of employees. And the Experience Center is also trying to cater to that by design and also making the work environment conducive. You know, so as you said, you guys have disrupted yourself because the general mentality of a Nigerian workplace is definitely not nap pods. You know, you hear about that in Silicon Valley and, you know, Western areas.
But we have to bring it home. We have to bring it home. You know, it's the only way. I mean, look at the situation now. In the last 4 months, it's been lockdown, right?
Yes.
But people have had to work. And I can tell you, I have been more productive. And I would say with my team in this period, you know, the disadvantage to the lockdown is there is no end time. You find yourself working late into the night. But then, you know what, the bright side to it is that you don't have to worry about traffic.
Right, I suppose so. What I actually wanted to do, I wanted to give us, I really still want to give us an opportunity to have a look at the Experience Center. And I'm going to play it from the perspective of, I think I had the wrong video the last time actually.
PwC is one of the biggest consulting companies in the world. And with the economy of the world at the moment, a lot of things are changing. And I think PwC had this vision to be disruptors in the industry. When we started this project, one of the questions we asked ourselves was how do we ensure that we're providing a space for our clients that aligns with the vision of the company? At Space Finish, our vision is very simple. We want to provide our clients with world-class spaces that allow them to be more productive, more innovative, and more collaborative. The inspiration for the space was to create an abstract space, an African space, and a tech space, all this combined in one. We wanted to create a space that felt like Wakanda, like the future of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I think the space allows for cultural shift and a cultural mentality change in how you approach typical work. And that is just indicative of the way the world of business is going today. And in being in that sort of mindset, it allows you to understand that you have to constantly think outside of the box. And ultimately, we believe with the kind of ideas and products we develop from being in this space, they will be in a place where they can serve the world better, they can serve their clients better, and by proxy, you're making more money for your clients as an organization, and you're increasing your profitability as a business.
We wanted to provide a workspace that is flexible and productive. So we created ample dynamic alternate workspaces that would support various modes of work and allow users to perform better.
And we believe that we have that challenge here in Africa. We have spent a lot of time investing in throwing our tentacles around and bringing the best talent to us and to show that as a local company, we have the pedigree, we have the creativity, and we have the expertise to deliver exactly what our peers in other countries around the world and Africa are delivering. And I think we put a lot of effort into selecting the right vendors and partners that can deliver the level of quality and excellence we require.
Selecting the right vendors was very challenging because my objective was to ensure that we're selecting the best vendors who bought into the idea and who could also provide world-class quality service for the space. So we had to go down to their workshops to review people they worked with, staff. We also had to make sure that they had the right material samples, which would also be approved by the clients. And we also had numerous assessments and interviews with every single individual that was working.
So I think that gives us a perspective, and that kind of, so that was from the designer's perspective. And I wanted to ease us into the next question, which is really how the workspace has changed. If you can touch on that from a PwC perspective.
Okay, so I think it's it's clear that we've actually challenged ourselves. I think technology has been a major driver, like I mentioned. It's an enabler. So beyond what we all know is working from home, we've all experienced remote working because that initially used to be like the main thing to do. As professional service providers, we see these changes in in 3 ways. I can touch on automation of operations, democratization of information, and recreation of value to our clients. So in the area of automation, what we've done is there has been more automation around repetitive processes. And I guess most traditional firms are also doing that. The most important thing is that we're paying close attention to our costs and revenue drivers to make sure that we make best use of automation. And for us, automation is not about losing jobs, because when you hear automation, everybody
please do that, because everyone thinks robots are coming to take over the job.
Nah, we still need the humans. The same way, we need the millennials. We also need the baby boomers as well. From an experience point of view. So like I said, automation is not about losing jobs. People should not be cost penalties. I guess that's what we believe at the end of the day. The cost penalty here is more time than people.
Right.
It's question of where and how our employees spending time. What can automation? Where can we introduce automation to ensure that there's a level of efficiency? So rather than laying off staff, we'll use automation to reallocate our time spent on non-value creating, I'll call them mundane tasks, creating ones. For example, our employees should not spend time on inquiries, and in this day and age, nobody should spend time on inquiries. They chatbots,
to take care of that.
Can take that. The idea with that is you take whoever is, maybe manning and inquiries desk, and you move them to somewhere that is more value creating. It does wonder, not just for the firm, but also for that individual, because it's some form of growth. And for us too, with our clients, for our clients, we also have to be coming from a competitive point of view. If everything is all manual based, the new players in the industry, the guys who don't have the same sort of overheads that we do, they come in with a lower cost structure driven automation, right from time you're already planning automation, as opposed to us that, we've been in business for 67 years. So it's almost kind of difficult to reinvent the wheel immediately. Everything is a gradual thing. But for a new guy coming in, he enters in with automation. So we always have to, be mindful of that and step up to the plate. So for us, we say that automation is a no-brainer, is a must. The other would be maybe around democratization of information.
What does that mean? It's a English there.
So democratization is really providing, let's say, call it free access. Everybody can have access to information. Now, in the past, information used to be one of our golden tools, but with internet now, everybody can perform secondary research. Yes, information is becoming less proprietary and it's more accessible to the public. Just have the internet and you're good to go. And for us, that's, that, like I said, that used to be an advantage, but it's no longer an advantage to our clients.
So you're not keepers of information anymore because it's freely available.
It's freely available, but what we do with information, so let me take it now, bring it into the recreating value using technology. So the one thing I would say is that we're in the business of solving problems. And I think most people are in the business of solving problems, so not consulting. And due to that, the whole market change, we see problems and we need to respond to those problems immediately. So to a degree, a high level of proactivity is required. So with information now being more accessible to people, the question is, how do we become proactive with that information? We still need information. It's how do you mine that information? So we make it in such a way that that information becomes even more accessible in a structured manner. Okay. So we come up with thought leaderships. We've come up Experience Centers podcast. Like I've mentioned, not only do we have Gen Zs and millennials as employees, we also have Gen Zs and millennials as our clients, who are building businesses on groundbreaking ideas. And we need to be able to share as much with them, to ensure that we're as impactful as we ought to be. So now, when we package information, in such a way where, how do they like to receive the information? Most people want to receive the information on the go. Most want, on your mobile. Most want, in your ear. So hence podcast. Hence also what we're doing here. So we just find that, by using that, what we have called advantage, we've restyled it,
right.
To make it more acceptable to the public and to our clients.
So evolving from perhaps 100-page reports to more bite-sized podcasts or videos. So in terms of dissemination of the information as well, you've had to change to respond to your clients and to the times, and use technology to be able to do that.
Fantastic.
So I guess that leads me to the next question. I mean, when in my research, I came across on the PW sites all over, actually, the essential 8 emerging technologies. And I'll list them quickly. It talks about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, blockchain, drones, robotics, 3D printing, virtual reality. And that sounds awesome and sounds fantastic. But we're Nigerians. So how can we relate that on a country and culture level, and even what the infrastructure of our country allows? Because this is all well and good. It sounds awesome to serve the Western world. But how are you, from a local perspective, I mean, you've touched on a little bit, of these 8 that we've mentioned, how are you, on a local perspective, able to relate that locally, culturally, and also to your customers' local needs, in spite of challenges in the country?
Sure. The beauty about Nigeria is that we leapfrog.
True.
we move like 100 steps ahead. So yes, it's all well and nice to have the 8 essentials. In fact, the 8 essentials came out from 250.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 250, and still growing. But the 8 is more around, these are the ones we feel will be more impactful to businesses and human lives. So I hear you on what you say about bringing it closer to home. So what we've done is we've categorized out of the 8, I think 6. So artificial intelligence. So let me first of all, we've categorized them into 3 compartments. Intelligent automation. Now, intelligent automation houses your AI and your robotics, yes? Automating trust. We're big on trust. The blockchain, AI, and IoT. And then extended reality, which is AR, VR, and IoT. So yes, whilst we have the drones and the 3D, we're not yet playing in that space. These are the technologies that we feel are well suited to our environment and currently in use. For instance, virtual reality now. We've deployed an HSC training solution, especially in this time where you can't have 1,001 people packed in a room. All you need to do is to give people headsets. This is for an oil and gas company. Give people headsets, and they go through that training process. It's so, kudos to the guys who've come up with this. It's as though you're in there, but I guess that's what VR is all about.
Yeah.
In that space. AI is what I say. It's is an umbrella term for smart technologies. AI is everywhere. We're all using AI, and the idea is that you can learn. The technologies learn from the environment in order to assist human decision making. So we're using this, AI is inclusive of machine learning, deep learning, speech recognition, think your audiobook, think your Netflix, you go onto Netflix, you watch a film, immediately gives you 5 other similar movies, based on your pattern. We've taken AI into banks. We're using AI to identify suspicious transactions.
Right.
Something called a fraud management system. Then we have blockchain. So blockchain, it's not as far-fetched. People think it's far-fetched, but truly it's not as far-fetched. And I can tell you in the space where we're planning to use this, first of all, using it for asset management.
Okay.
Another space that might be relatable to most people is land registry.
Oh, really?
Yes. So if you think about the challenges that come with land registry, where you have a plot of land, that plot of land, maybe some Omonile has sold it to somebody else, and nobody really has, the so-called, we don't have a single source of truth. No, to a degree, because I have my document, Omonile tells me, this land has been allocated to somebody else, the government, yes, to a degree, but we don't have it. It's not transparent, So what the idea with blockchain is that it's called a public distributed ledger, where transactions are recorded and confirmed. You cannot change. Once you put a transaction on the blockchain, it's like a block. You can't change it. Now, to change it, you have to add another block to it. So for when you think of it as a space where data is recorded permanently. So you can imagine I want to sell my land, or you want to buy my land. You can go into the system and check the originator, who owns this land. Yes, you can pull your information, and then when I sell my land to you, that transfer creates another block. So you can trade. It's not airy-fairy. It's nobody saying, it's my father's land or is some chief's land. That's blockchain is here to stay. A lot of banks are using it.
And I love that example because, like I said, I wanted relatable examples as to how it affects us in Nigeria, because a lot of it sometimes sounds as if, it's Western influence. And that kind of takes me to my next question, which is talking about the skills required, to work in this space. Because it's one thing to have all these technologies that you would like to deploy as solutions for your clients, but it's another thing to have the people with top skills. So if we can touch on, the skills required and the challenges that you face recruiting clients with the relevant skill sets. And of course, again, the reason we're doing this is highlighting how we can relate STEM education to it. So if you can, touch on that in terms of skills required and even the challenges in finding the right people for the instruction center. Yeah. And sorry, please keep your questions coming. We have one question at the moment. I'm hoping that you're all glued to what we're saying. That's why you're not asking further questions, but please go ahead. So go ahead.
So, Jenny, if you remember, I talked about problem solving, and we're all in the business of problem solving. So when you think about problem solving, and we always say that problem solving requires an environment and culture, that accommodates a whole range of skills, whether you're an architect, a designer, mech engineer, computer programmer, it shouldn't really matter. STEM, in this case, is about problem solving effectively, yes? Just to touch on this whole notion that, I remember when we were discussing initially, we talked about, as STEM holders sort of shy away from professional services. I can tell you that majority of the employees at the Experience Center are all STEM holders. Majority of them are STEM holders. In fact, we have 2 people who have PhDs. Let me tell you what their PhDs are. Biophysics.
Wow.
Statistics.
And what?
And statistics.
Wow.
Statistics. So what I'm trying to say here is that we're placing less emphasis on business skills, you know, because we believe that you can learn a lot from us. Our concern is, what can we learn from you? So in talking about skills, I remember your guest last week was talking about critical thinking. He mentioned critical thinking like in pretty much all his examples. I feel that STEM or not, the question is, how well are you thinking critically about the problems in your space? How do you form data-driven perspectives on solutions to these problems? Yes? Empathy. You know, people think, you know, I think, you know, gone are the days, we need to embrace soft skills. So I'm not going to tell you, you need to be a programmer, no. It's the soft skills that are making a difference. Empathy. How good are you at empathizing with your colleagues or your customers? You know, it's not what they, in some cases, it's not what they say, but what they need. Understand? So it can be, I want a vehicle, but what do they really need? And how are you able to tease that out? You know, so if you're not able to collaborate effectively, you've probably lost the act of empathy, for starters. Then of leadership. How good are you in taking up and creating initiatives? You know, you can't remain in a bubble. You need to step out of that bubble. We talk about being able to explore opportunities, you know, out there, being able to identify the risks. The people who are able to take initiative, who are able to step out of that bubble, are the leaders. And so at the end of the day, it's not about, I won't tell you, you have to pick up a particular programming skill, because you can, if you have all these 3 skills, you can learn any programming skill because you have the right attitude, for starters, you know, and it's really up to you. In terms of challenges, I talked to you, I mentioned my restless bunch. So they're great, fantastic. How do we keep them? That's the challenge we're facing. You know, being able to attract and retain them. Majority of them don't want your permanent jobs. You know, you and I probably lived in the area, or we live in the era where you have to give us health, you have to give us pension, you have to, they don't really care. They don't really care. They want to be freelancers.
Right,
so
exactly.
How do we retain this guy? And I guess the other thing is, you know, pointing a finger, you know, at the education system. And I'm pointing back at myself. I think, unfortunately, the education system in Nigeria has failed a lot of people. It's failed everybody. What I'm thankful about is the era of this internet. You know, I talked to you about information and everybody being able to access information. Everybody can access courses now. You can go online to upskill, retrain yourself. Right. So that whole thing of, you know, the government has failed me, what are you doing to equip yourself? You know, I always say that the ball is in your court and it depends on how you want to play it. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. So let's go to some of the Q&A. I have a question here. Thinkers that are coming up with ideas may be seen as almost unrealistic because of our surroundings or background. Thinkers that are coming up with ideas that may be seen as unrealistic ideas. Is there such a, I guess the question is this coming up with the ideas, must they all be fantastic, or is it the ability to be able to shoot out ideas? Because when they talk about, you know, design thinking, the idea is that let's just brainstorm, let's bring up all the ideas. So as you know, can we dismiss some ideas, or just making people feel comfortable that let's just even come up with some ideas? How have you experienced that, or how have you seen that?
So thank you, Jade. I'm glad you mentioned design thinking, and you know, it seems like a new fad, but really design thinking is so critical in terms of separating the so-called must-have and need to have. You know, you have to be able to walk in your client's shoes. Remember, we talked about being problem solvers. You can't solve the problems, right? But You know, so what are those problems that we must prioritize? What does my client really need? You know, can't, you know, from a cost efficient point of view, I can't give you 1,001 problems and 1,001 solutions. You're not going to pay me for it. You know, prioritize. So you have the nice to have and you have the must have. And that's what design thinking does for us. It enables you to walk in your client's shoes. So if your client doesn't really understand his pain point, by the time you create multiple personas and you go through that customer journey, you are able to elicit some of this. I'm using the ideas. You're able to elicit some of these ideas that the customer doesn't even know about.
Right.
So there is no bad idea.
Right.
We prioritize the ideas.
And I think maybe from a cultural perspective, you know, is that, you know, being penalized for coming up with the wrong answer. I think that may be a cultural thing from even our educational system, that that's not what I asked you, that's not the response. So, you know, people maybe are shying away from even coming up with ideas or having the confidence to do so. But I suppose, you know, that's where leaders and bosses that have, you know, emotional intelligence are able to tease that out of their people. That, look, let's just all come out with it. No one is going to be penalized, and that the idea is for us to problem solve. Another question, what advice do you have for girls who are definitely interested in robotics, programming, etc., but are still struggling to decide to study under computer science? Any words of wisdom for them?
Okay, so at the end of the day, it's all about passion. What are you interested in? I've mentioned to you people who, I know people, in fact, I know a medical doctor, and please, we need the doctors, and we need the lawyers, and we need the chartered accountant. But this friend is trained as a medical doctor. And he thought maybe he was fulfilling his father's wish or whatever, but he didn't feel as fulfilled. And he has moved completely to IT. You know, so nothing really stops you from making a change midway. It's really about the passion. I mentioned that we have 1,001 information on, if it's robotics you want, if it's data analytics, you can spend your time actually self-learning, teaching yourself, understanding. I say to people, read trends, you know, where at this stage, I have 2 girls who are not sure what they need to do. And I say to them, you know, go and read the trends. What is happening around there? Let's talk Greek, for instance. So somebody says to me, one of them says to me, I want to do engineering. And I say, what do you understand by engineering? You know, what is happening in the space of engineering? You know, another one says, I want to do law. I'm like, okay, just law. You know, how about combining law with IT? I'm not, maybe it's because I'm not pushing.
But
that's the way, but truly, that's, you know, it's now a combination of so many other things. We talk about businesses that are successful. Your backbone is technology. You can't run away from it. So I would advise, you know, the young lady to go with whatever, you know, your mind is set at, but read far and wide. Look at trends, you know, just read, just understand what is happening and ask questions.
So have an attitude of lifelong learning and be able to read the trends. And again, as we said, we can't be ignorant of technology and how that influences us. And takes me to the next question. Someone is asking, how do you advise a teenager seeking guidance about a career as an accountant, but has the old perspective of the Big Four, but wants to remain relevant in this STEM-focused environment? I think it goes back to what you said, you know, read the trends. Just because you want to be an accountant doesn't mean that you are, I guess accountancy is seen as, you know, old perspective and fuddy-duddy.
Well, we need them all.
But exactly, it's one of those professions that you still need. But like I said, you know, bearing in mind and whatever you need to upskill in addition to that to sharpen your skills. So again, all of this going back to skills development. I don't know if you have anything further to add to that, or
Johnny, you said it all really. It's just building, for formidable skills that regardless of where you are, you're able to adapt in a changing world. We are in a changing world, it's become, more prevalent now. But the truth is, we've been changing since at least a good 2-3 decades, but haven't really caught up or haven't realized. And for me, the value here is not just spending time adapting, but also spending time proactively creating this change.
right.
Do you understand?
I think that proactivity is essential, really, because I think
you have to be.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, the motivation has to come from you, and the hunger and the needs to continuously learn and improve yourself. So another question that we have is, with a more restless workforce coming through, how are you shaping their career development and progress within the organization? And I think that's a great question. I think what the COVID economy has brought out is really, I guess, in some sector, it's highlighted. And I think I read research somewhere that talked about how workplace development, investments in workplace development, in some cases, has decreased quite significantly in terms of maybe the investments companies are making in their employees, and that this COVID situation has highlighted the skills gap even within current employees that are working in your company. So added to that is they're restless. So what are we, or maybe in your company, you can speak to the career development and retentive strategies that PwC may be employing, if you're aware.
I mean, for us, regardless of what industry you're working at, the main focus or a key focus, remember I talked about strategic focus being around technology, is to upskill everyone in digital technology. So we have mandatory courses. Now, what that does is that it opens up a whole new world. As you know, most times you spend your time in your cocoon and you have no idea of what is happening out there. What we've done is we've imbibed this digital technologies into our day-to-day. And by doing so, it gives you an opportunity to see how you can leverage these technologies within your own workspace. How can I optimize what I'm doing? I've just learned how to program. Rather than using Excel, can I use a BI tool? So for us at PwC, they've done a fantastic job in imbibing imbibing and enforcing, because it is mandatory that everybody must go through that program.
Okay.
So in terms of attracting, yes, and in terms of expanding, I think we have done a good job in that.
And I would even also add, as you said actually previously, that even if your company is not doing that, be proactive in your own skills and career development.
Yeah.
Attention to the trends. As we're rounding up, I wanted to ask you 3 takeaways from this COVID time for current employees. Again, it's tying into what we've said, but maybe just to kind of reinforce that. What are some key takeaways? Because I suppose, companies like yours, you guys read trends. You have people who are doing research, so you guys have such information. So what are some key takeaways from the observations? I'm sure PwC has written, some essay or some reports on it. What are the 3 takeaways, or let's just say a couple of takeaways that you can share with us, listeners?
So I think at the end of the day is COVID definitely has shown us that we need skills. You need to create your own career. You need to take charge of your own career, and you have to be mindful that of the changes in your space. Now, for me, the three or two takeaways will be critical thinking. I can't overemphasize critical thinking. The question is, or not the question, how do I approach the unknown? Because we really don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. You know,
even though we have numerous seminars telling us what will happen after COVID.
Even me, as you know, as the so-called disruptor, I can't tell you, we can't. But what we can do is tell you to be prepared. You know, how do we get organizations prepared? You know, so around the critical thinking is a case of, you must know what you know, what your assumptions are, and what you do not know.
Right.
And happily take them on. You know, life isn't static. You have to make decisions. You have to move. I mean, you know, the last 4 months, 5 months is the perfect case study. You cannot wait for answers. And if you have the critical thinking skills, it allows you to change your mind. It allows you to move, you know, change your mind when new information comes up. You know, it makes you more adaptable. You know, for me, critical thinking is the one takeaway for me from this, from COVID. We talked design thinking, and I think this is more, I think, applicable to pretty much everybody. We talked about being in the business of problem solving, education, healthcare, agri. All these sectors have their necessary agents. They have patients, they have doctors, they have teachers, they have students, they have farmers. You know, we cannot assume. You can't assume. You can't just leap, oh, I'm going to create a solution for you. How? How? That's just going to lead to wasting. So unless you walk in their shoes, and this is what design thinking does for you, unless you walk in their shoes, you engage, you know, you engage these people, you live their lives as much as possible by listening. That's another skill. You know, by listening thoroughly to their perspective, it's impossible for you to create the right solution, regardless of the industry. And I think the other thing for me is leadership and just having the right passion.
Right. Well, one last question just came in now, which I like. It's very interesting. Soft skills are usually the most difficult to teach. Any suggestion on how these can be developed? It's a great question, actually.
It is a great question.
So when we think of soft skills, we think, as you said, critical thinking, problem solving,
empathy,
communication, collaboration, working in teams. I mean, I'll jump in there quickly. As a student, I would say, even in terms, you can, a lot of that, maybe through work experience even, or even through project-based activities that you yourself are doing with a team or with your friends or group of students. Let's take on a project. And the outputs of working together in a team, you often, all of those soft skills come to play when you're working in a project. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, you're right. Some of these things are learned, you know, and you learn them when you are immersed. Even you learn them at home.
Right.
You learn them at home. You learn them, and you know, it's important that whatever the values that you've acquired at home, you know, when you go out there, the same values that you need to exhibit, you know, and once again, the internet has made it so easy. You know, you can log on to YouTube, you learn how to, I don't know, maybe not communicate, but you can learn empathy, you can learn emotional intelligence. You know, you can learn pretty much anything. One thing I would say is that attitude overrides aptitude. Now, if you have a lousy attitude and you're Einstein, you know, that's not for you, really. So I always like to tell the younger folks, if your attitude stinks, everything stinks. And part of, you know, having the right attitude is being able to listen, is being able to watch around you, you know, and you pick up all the right right skills by just watching and listening to people. Now, if you have the wrong attitude and you think you're so sorted, as my kids would say, then you lose these soft skills.
Right.
You don't understand how to work in a team. You lose the essence of working in a team. You have no clue how to collaborate because already, you started off on the wrong footing. So just have the right attitude and you'll pick up the skills easily. Fantastic. And of course, jump online.
Exactly. I love that. Attitude overrides aptitude. I think that is an awesome parting word for us. And so I thank you so much, Ada. Thank you for your insights and thank you for bringing perspective and shedding a light on an industry that most of us probably have a certain perception of. Thank you again for discussing with us.
Thank you, Jennifer, for having me.
For listening. I don't want to take us too much over time. And so again, we're rounding up another week in our STEM Talk series. This has been awesome. For those of you who want more information about what we do, check us out on stem-mets.com. And as I mentioned, we are building up our students for the future workplace and bridging the skills gap. So we have our summer tech camp ongoing at the moment. You can get more information and register on our website, as I said, and we're also on Instagram. So thank you so much. Until the next time, keep well and God bless.